Thank you for listening today on Revealing Wholeness, sponsored by Infinity Whole Health. Check out our website at infinityWholeHealth.com, where we are revealing the eternal in each individual, the infinite in the individual. The creativity is made manifest. Limitation is let go. Now, here's your host, Dr. Troy Munson.
Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Troy Munson at Revealing Wholeness. And, I love the beginning of the year because everybody's trying to lose weight. Everybody's trying to look better. Everybody's trying to get back in on their diet or whatever they're doing, get back in the groove because, the end of November through the end of December is just chaos. And so now we're trying to regroup, we're trying to rest, we're trying to look better, we're trying to improve ourselves. And in this month, please do catch out our videos on keto and low-grain diet, and we've got another video coming out on Trim Healthy Mama and Mediterranean diet. And so those are kind of the four big diets that I work with. And I'm going to mention today, the Paleo Diet, because the Paleo Diet is often a diet that I'll recommend to people just as a beginner diet. And the reason is because if we look at a paleo type diet, and there's almost no wrong way to do a paleo diet as long as your foods are unprocessed. And that's the big deal. It's literally saying, hey, let's eat real food that we would have had in front of us or available to us 1,000 years ago. So, we live in a society now, and I've mentioned this so many times, where we can eat carbs, bread, pasta, muffins all day, every day of the year. And ultimately, that's not so good. And there's a number of reasons why it's not so good, but I'm going to get to that in a moment. But the paleo, what's funny is, you read some people's comments on the paleo diet, and they're like, well, if you're going to eat paleo, then you probably ought to be exercising a lot too. And I thought, that's kind of funny. We had to work for our food. So it means, makes sense that if you're going to do a paleo diet, then you do want to have some physical activity going on in your lifestyle. So I'm going to talk about a couple different styles of paleo diet. You can do a grain paleo, meaning you can do plant-based stuff like sweet potatoes, carrots, potatoes. They're plant-based, and you can do that, and that's higher carb. But I would be cautious in watching the amount of fats that you do with something like that. And so if you're going to eat natural fats that are found in things like nuts and seeds, great. If you're going to eat that kind of stuff, it was accessible to us way back then that we would still eat fermented foods. So I still recommend fermented foods. Now, there's a drawback a little bit with the paleo, because paleo says, no legumes, no peanuts, no cashews, things like that, nuts or beans and things like that, things that have lots of lectins and phytic acids. Some people pronounce it phytic, but I like phytic. It rolls off the tongue a little bit better. And so those lectins and phytic acids are very hard on our digestive system coming out of legumes. And so when we eat foods like that, they probably ought to be fermented. Now, I myself have not tried to ferment peanuts, and I have raw peanuts in my house. And I'm considering doing exactly that because for years we've soaked our almonds and walnuts in water and sea salt and let them sit there for 24 hours, filling up and getting all swole. And then we dry them in a dryer for 15 or at 115 degrees for about 20 to 30 hours, depending on how you like the crispness of your walnuts or almonds. And I like them a bit more crispy, so I dry them a little bit longer. But anyways, that's now a fermented nut, and that has denatured the phytic acids and the lectins. So if you're going to be doing something like a paleo or something that is low protein or low animal protein type stuff, and you're thinking, hey, I want to do something a bit more vegan, but still a little bit paleo, then you're going to want to be doing and getting very good at fermenting nuts and seeds. You can do that with things like the cashews, the peanuts, the sunflower seeds, all that, even pumpkin seeds. And they would say, hey, pumpkin seeds can be pretty high in that stuff. You want to be careful eating those things. And I would tend to agree that raw pumpkin seeds, I don't particularly care for the taste. There's something there that I can taste, and it's probably the phytic acids and the lectins. But it would be just as easy to say, hey, let's buy some and soak them just like we would an almond or a walnut, and then go ahead and dry them again. We don't want to roast them because that's high temperature and that's destroying oils. So if we look way back 1,000 years ago, we didn't have trans fats, we didn't have margarine, we didn't have all these canola oils, we didn't have crap. We actually had real oils. We ate animal fats. We rendered lard. That's how we lived because we are animals. We eat animals. That's what we do. So as we go, I will caution you to do a paleo to not do so many vegetable oils, but do a little bit more warm oils. And here's why. I probably now, it's been a year and a half ago, I would say that I did a podcast on fats. And I talked about saturated fats, monounsaturated fats, and polyunsaturated fats. And I talked about how the mono and poly has openings for oxygen to come in and oxygenate those fats and basically oxidize them and make those fats turn rancid much more quickly. Where saturated fat didn't. It was completely saturated and oxygen could find no purchase. It took a lot longer to oxidize a saturated fat than it did any other. Well, where do we find saturated fats? Animal fats. High temperature vegetable fats, like coconut oil. You think, well, coconut oil, that melts at like 77 degrees. It does, and so it's solid at room temperature, but because it's grown at such a warm climate, it's higher saturated fat. So we're looking for things that are a bit higher, like olive oil. Very high temperature grow season, it has more of a saturated fat. The reason is because they need to be more solid at higher temperatures. They don't need to be liquid at 60 degrees because they live in a high temperature climate. And if it was liquid at that temperature, they wouldn't do so well. So that's why saturated fat, again, room temperature, it's a solid saturated fat. So look for those kinds of things. I know that's maybe a little bit of change of thinking. If it's new to you, please check out the 2 videos that I've done already in the month of January for specifically the types of diets that are really expressed to my patients that I think are good fits for them. Depending on the client, I'll recommend different diets, but those are my 4 favorite in this month that we've talked about. And so if you have any questions on paleo, things like that, please shoot me a quick email. And I want to make at least one more comment. I love the paleo as compared to the keto because keto is very, very restrictive, but the paleo will actually allow you to do some wine, some dark chocolate on occasion, even some tea, even some coffee. And again, make sure they're organic. Make sure they're not filled with a bunch of pesticides and things that we really don't want. The lighter the roast of the coffee, the better. Most people like a darker roast, unfortunately. But again, the more roasting you do of something, the more you destroy it, the more the oils go rancid and all that. So again, coffee, it's got good things. It's got antioxidants in it, but it also has some possibilities of not being so good for us because it's one of the more pesticide crops on the planet. So be cautious there. And then, of course, we talked already about the lectins and the phytic acids, all that to be, at least taken with a grain of salt, so to speak. Some of you out there will find it much easier to deal with those things. Others already have IBS and those kinds of conditions that realize those foods tend to tear me up. So if that's you, I lament. But again, there's a modified paleo diet out there for you if that's what you choose. But again, as you have questions, please email me, message me. And until then, I'm Dr. Troy Munson on Revealing Wholeness.
Thanks for listening. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach Dr. Munson at 360-893-8586 or email him at chiroman@dr.com. That's chiroman@dr.com. Check out our current workshop schedule on Facebook at Infinity Whole Health.